Hello VOD people, I hope you're having a good day. I hope you're getting water, food, meds, whatever you need to do today. This is gonna be a bit of a tired stream. Yesterday was full of technical difficulties. Me and Penguin working on a build together that we're gonna be building today. And we had an hour. Yes, I am late. We had an hour of technical difficulties before we ended up just having me send over a copy of the world to Penguin, which took another half hour, because I said to slowly down the world, then zip the world. Then I had to find a way to share it, so I ended up just uploading it to Drive, and then she had to download it. So it took a minute. And then we finally got to building, finally got to this thing, that thing, had some shenanigans. And before the shenanigans, I sat down and saved a world edit schematic of the build, because it's not my world, I can't re-access it. It didn't save. I have it on recording that it saved. It did not save. It's just gone. I assume it's the fuckery of the shelves again. And I'm gonna test probably after the stream or tomorrow, I don't know when. There's another shelf mod, and I'm hoping it's better. I'm gonna test if building mods hate that one. Because building mods hate the current backport of the shelves we have. Lightmatica crashes if it's in the material list, and it crashes my entire game. And I aim to assume that it's the reason World Edit did not save the schematic properly. So I spent several hours feeling overwhelmed, because by this point when I checked and I was about to get working on it, it was like 7 p.m. I spent several hours feeling overwhelmed, and at 11 p.m. I accepted my fate and rebuilt the thing by hand. Slowly copying and fixing this thing and that thing, because when I shared it with Penguin and we started working on it, it was just a wool structure with some furniture here and there, and we made several changes and adjustments here and there. So I had to go through and change all those and redo them again. So I didn't get to bed until like 1 a.m. last night. It is currently 9:30. I spent the morning, I woke up at my normal 8, and then spent the morning on my language app. Because each month there is a like mini leadership board. And I've been on the top 4 for the past week, and I've been slowly going up. Last night I was in top 2, and I was only like 10, 20 stars behind the first person, so I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna spend the morning doing this. And you get stars by learning more of your language. So I just spent the morning learning a bunch of Japanese. And finally, I am in first. The leadership thing ends today for the month. It ends at like 3 p.m. my time, so I still have another 6 or 7 hours that I have to hold this. Because I'm only about 10 stars in front of the second place, who's been the first place in this entire time. So I'm just going to continuously check on it throughout the day and try and keep it up, because I am using the free version. I have to watch ads if I need more energy in order to like do the learning. The other person's premium. They don't have to use energy at all. They can just continuously go through it and regain first whenever they want. So I just kind of have to hope. And I've already used most of my ads today. I'm pretty sure I only have like 1 or 2 left. I just gotta hope that I can keep it and they don't notice. But anyway, that is not what we're doing today. Today we are building on the PSMP. We're not even building yet. I need to collect materials because that's all I did. As soon as I finished building it in creative last night, I sat down, wrote out the material list on paper as per normal. I have it right here next to me. We should have most of the materials. Some things we will have to go out for though, because like, where is it? I need 44 end rods. So we need to go do that. Let's hop into gameplay. Minecraft, please. Oh, I was playing Dungeon. Yeah, last time we streamed it was Dungeons of Dreadrock. There we go. So I should have most everything. I still have a cart on me. I should have most everything. I think I can get away with just using backpacks for this, so we're gonna try that. It's gonna take a few. Start with 3. I don't imagine it's gonna take all of my backpacks, but I have like at least a backpack worth of singular items. I'm just like, oh, I need 9 of this thing, 6 of this thing, 2 of this, 1 of that. So we're gonna see what all I need and what we can collect and get, and hopefully we can actually build this today. The plan is we're gonna be building a Cherluck copycat house, kind of. It started as a joke. It's no longer needed, but it is a joke. I guess I have 3 maces. Oh no. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 30. 35% closer to not being homeless. Hell yeah. Because you kind of inherited a couple houses. We had a problem on the server for a good minute of way too much stealing going on to like an exploitive excessive point. And the players responsible have been... Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh, you've been working on the boat. Nice. Players responsible have been removed. I'm trying to organize my thoughts. But while we were trying to figure out what was going on and realizing, oh wait, all the stealing's going on, a bunch of us were on the server this last Sunday, and X was like, oh, I'm gonna do bounty hunting. I'm gonna do this thing and that thing and find who's responsible. I'm like, I will help you with that. I will make you... I struggled with the name. For some reason, I was thinking Shakespeare. I'll make you Cherluck Homneh's house. So we're gonna make her a Cherluck Homneh house. What do I need? Dark planks. And in addition to that, Penguin, she wants to sell potions. And then we joked I wanted to make a really overpowered silverfish farm. So there's a fight pit underneath the Cherluck and Potions house. Hardest DIC? What? I don't know what you're asking. 237. 27, not 20. No, it is 37. Okay. Cool. Alrighty. I should be marking these off as I go. That would be smart. Stone, basalt, tough, dark plank, deep slate shingles. Do I need regular deep slate? Yes. Okay. How much? 230. Oh, they're over here now. Right. Oh, since we have gotten rid of the players responsible, we don't necessarily need the house anymore, but I still think it'd be funny, and the fight pit, well, the silverfish, disc. I'm not sure. I mean, technically speaking, it could be the ancient city one, because it's split into a bunch of pieces, but those aren't too hard to find either. The music disc fragments, technically. Although I guess the normal creator one would be difficult. How do you get lava chicken, though? You have to kill a zombie jockey to get it? I'm checking. Minecraft, wiki, music disc. Music disc. Generated loot. Okay, loot probability. Oh, creator music box. box, actually. It's 1.4% loop probability. But what is the probability of the disc fragment? Generated loot. Oh yeah, it has to be the music box one, because the fragments are like a 30% chance. How do you get the lava chicken then? Where is this? How does obtaining? So it is mob loot. Yeah, okay, it is chicken jockeys by killing chicken jockeys. It doesn't. They haven't fixed the wiki yet because it doesn't show up under the mob loot list for obtaining. Oh no, it just doesn't have it in the normal list. There's a long list of items, and then it hides it in a bottom paragraph that says, "Oh, when a chicken jockey is killed, it will always drop lava chicken. However, the rider must be killed before the chicken." But doesn't include it in the top list. So yeah, creator music box version from decorated pots is a 1.4%, or relic from, or not relic, a precipice from child chambers that you can only get from vaults, which is 3.6%. Yeah. Because Other Side technically falls into this. It's a 3.1% chance from monster rooms, but it's also an 8% chance from ancient cities. So definitely creator music box. Uh-oh. Oh yeah, because she was in the end. Yeah, I should have expected that. I really should have. I just crafted the shingles. Bricks are next. 2, 11. 1, 2. That's the normal one. There's a music box version as well. I think I might actually have the music box version. I'm not sure. I might be thinking of last season, because I know for a fact I had it last season. 211, yes. Boop. But yeah, we making Cherluck Homneh's house. I was gonna add a... You got it this season too. Okay, let me check, because it'd be upstairs if I did. No, I do not. Let me check Ender Chest, because it could also be hidden away. No, I only have regular creator. I don't have the music disc one. I was also gonna add a... I need to... In... Oh, I don't have to smelt it. I can just craft it. That's great. I was gonna add a whole temple to the graveyard as well. I was gonna add a whole temple to the graveyard, but I'm like, I don't have the time for that. I'm not gonna bother with that. I don't know what I'm building right now. We're just gonna do that next week. 2 stacks and 5.
Do one of y'all have a spare elytra?
I know for a fact Racecar does, because he has like 9.
Okay, can I possibly
Okay, 11. You got a water bucket to get down to the void?
Yeah, I'm getting one.
Okay.
I don't know what it was, but for some reason it kept every time, like, I clicked any button, it tabbed me out. even though I was very much, like, doing stuff in-game as well. So I
Oh.
just couldn't fly with my elytra.
Ooh, that's not good.
Okay, just meet me at the end portal, race car.
So you know how I saved a schematic of the build? It didn't save.
Yeah, I sent it to you already.
Oh,
I saw the
I
message
kind of
this
needed
morning, I
that
sent
last
it to you.
night.
Oh, sorry. I was
I got
devastated.
it. I ended up staying
falling
late so I could get
fast.
it done. So now we're collecting materials.
Yeah, no, I ended up passing out at my desk later on.
Ooh. Where's bones? Bones. I know I have bones. This. Oh wait, do I have? Yeah, I don't think I do. No. Yeah, boop. And where shall I absolutely ruin with moss today?
Yeah, I need to get the moss farms set up.
Honestly, I'd probably forget and just do it by hand anyhow. Okay, I'm so curious.
That's
Is
fair.
this... Okay, this isn't. Next to the tree farm is a forest igloo, and for the longest time I thought it was somebody's base. It's just a little dirt shack. Oh.
Can you access console yet?
Nope. I check multiple times every day and it's still a no. I haven't talked about it on stream yet. I can't see the console. It has been... They've been moving console hosts. Our server host has been moving console hosts for the past week, and I still can't see it. Like, I get we have a modded server, but we can't be that big of a server.
Or not? It's just they might have so many already.
That's fair. But you'd think they'd do it like one at a time and make sure each one's done instead of click, oh, move all, and just wait it out. That's... How much do I need? 2 and 1. Of course I do. That should be more than enough. Also, I think I'm seriously gonna change out... see if I can find a better shelf backport mod, because both Lightmatica and I'm assuming now World Edit hate the shelves that we currently have. Because I'm thinking that's one, the problem you can't join me, but for the reason you can't join me despite it working perfectly fine, we both have the same version. And 2, I have it on recording that the schematic saved. I can see it happen. I see that it says it saved successfully, but it's nowhere in my files, it's nowhere on my computer. So I'm gonna assume World Edit also hates the shelves.
I can find a new shelf mod if you would like.
There's one other one that I could see that I'm gonna test later.
I don't know what all just got thrown into the void. If it was your elytra race car, I am so sorry. And there goes my fucking pickaxe.
Uh-oh.
Nope, your elytra was saved, race car. But literally both of my pickaxe and my fucking shovel, those were easy to get.
Log, stacking 62.
Yeah, most of it's fine. It's fine. It was just the silk touch pickaxe. I'm not too worried about it.
Is that the perfect amount? Nope. That's fine. Stack 62.
Oh, and my sword.
First blank, stack 54. That's the reason I usually do this off camera, but I need to get this done, and I was not staying up even later to do it last night.
I would have ended up passing out while you were building.
I'm collecting materials, I mean.
Well, yeah, but I would have fully passed out middle of you doing it. Like if we were still on call. Because I was on call with a friend when I did.
Is that enough? Yeah, oh, that's more than enough.
Base car, if you want to come to my base so you can grab your Elytra.
Whoa. And we're almost out of the stats. Finally. Oh, cobbled basalt stairs. Yeah, that is stacking 13. 13. Cobbled basalt. I think I didn't make too many changes to what you had seen. I think I only really changed the copper that was downstairs to oxidized copper instead. The stuff downstairs got changed to dark oak. And a little more texture downstairs because it was just full basalt walls, so I added some cobbled basalt to it.
Okay.
That should be about the same as what you saw. Stacking 11.
Okay.
Wait, do I have? No, I do not. Woof. Club. Stack. Cat. Oh, geez, there's a fog outside. I can barely see my neighbors' houses. Maybe I'll actually get snow for once, that'd be great. Spruce window.
Oh, oops. Hey, race car here. You're gonna get a singular key.
Be able to get more than enough with just this, I'd imagine. Key. Ah, do I not keep the windows in here? Where am I keeping the windows? Oh, they're over here. Give me that.
Ugh.
Stack. I only had a stack. Take some of that. Hi, Dusty. How are you, good sir? And how much? 4.
Why do I not have ink sac? I probably did. Yeah, yep, I do.
Okay.
I don't remember. How do they work like bundles? Yeah, they work like bundles.
Yep.
Of course, I don't have a name tag. No, I probably do. Where is
if you run over to me, I got one. I got quite a few.
I have apparently 13. I don't know where I got 13 name tags from.
Mine shafts? Maybe?
I don't go in mine shafts, that's the thing. I don't know where I got
There's
it from.
the nether mine shafts. There's a bunch of them on the nether. From netherite mining.
Not even that.
Trading.
Because I've had them for like... I don't think I traded for them either. Because I had these way before we even had villagers. I think I just got extremely lucky and just kept taking them.
Basat.
It goes like 90% of my diamonds. I can't wait till the shulker farm's up and running so I can actually start using shulkers.
That's almost enough. That should be perfect. Almost.
Because no offense to the backpack mod, I just like refuse to use backpacks because then I'll just become too reliant on them, and I much prefer using shulkers.
Fair enough. What? Hello there. Oh, by chance.
Oh, probably gonna go in that.
Do you have any end rods? Just perhaps.
Me?
Same thing to you, race car. Either one of you. I need
You can craft
44.
them, you know that.
I'm aware you can make farms for them. I'm just checking if y'all have any, because I usually end up hoarding them, but I didn't hoard them this time.
No, I mean craft them. You can craft them.
I know, but they require... Oh, I have 19. Okay. That's enough of a start. They require popped coarse fruits, and that's not exactly something I collect. If I remember right.
I have plenty of pop coarse fruit.
How many does
it just
popped?
fully would be a matter of I don't have the blaze rods.
I might have the blaze rods. I think I have 1 or 2 popped coarse fruit, but not a lot.
Yeah, I was about to say, unless they broke the chorus plant I had outside my house, I have plenty of chorus fruit.
I gotta do math. Minus... I only need 7. I might actually have... I might actually have enough for this, because I've collected popped coarse fruit from something or other. I think the end mine shafts. I know I have some...
Probably.
Oh, I have regular chorus fruit.
I have 154 pop chorus fruit if you want to bring blaze rods.
I ended up having like 48 chorus fruit, so I'm just gonna throw them in the furnace.
Thank you, race car.
Where all my furnaces are downstairs. I need to add a basement.
Did you hear me?
Yeah. I have a bunch of chorus fruit apparently, so I'm just gonna go smelt that.
Unless you just want me to bring you the popped ones I have, because I have no use for them.
I'm smelting the ones I have. I fully thought I did not have a single thing for this, but apparently I do.
Can't wait till we get like the good spear mod.
Yeah. I need to check this. I ended up changing some of the plants in your potion shop to the pale ones. Minecraft. I assume Minecraft Wiki Eye Blossom. So I'm hoping it's not something you have to specifically get in the biome, or at the very least I could
no,
bone meal it.
If you specifically want the eye blossom, you just have to wait for it to like open, and then you can just bone meal it a bunch. Because there's two different flowers, and they don't.
Yeah, I want one of each.
Okay, so yeah, you can just bone meal it once you get one of them. Because I have.
How do you start to get one though?
Oh, you just grab it from the Pale Garden, then you just place it down, wait for it to turn night, and then it'll close. Or turn day and it'll close.
Gonna have to check the other Pale Garden though. The current one we have is pretty drained.
You want me to just bring you the ones I have?
The ones I have?
You want me to just bring you the ones I have?
pretty drained.
You want me to just bring you the ones I have?
Yes, please. I just need one.
Okay.
Because the closest pale garden is drained. There's a very tiny bit on the other side that hasn't been touched yet, but...
Oh, I might have lied to you. You apparently can't bone meal them.
No.
I thought you could. I can very much go get you more. I don't mind. Can you make it rain real quick? I know where there's a massive pale garden. Thank you.
Oh my, fuel back up. There we go. Cool.
Wrong button.
Thankfully the moss is easy enough to get. I could just bone meal a bunch of that and I have some saplings. But the other stuff,
Right.
I don't have.
Okay, so it's that way.
Light. Nope. Light. That's it. No. There we go.
We don't going Mach 10 and question the lag.
Oh, I slightly changed the windows too, so they have little, like, I don't know what to call it. They look cool.
That's
I could say
nighttime.
that.
Gotta deal with the... Oh wait, I can get more creaking hearts. I need it. I don't think I brought my... Oh, but it's in my... What is it? Ender chest.
How does
Yes, I
one
love
make...
the lag like this. The server doesn't.
Oh, yep, I feel the lag now. I'm waiting for this barrel to open, or this cabinet to open.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh. Did I crack? Yeah, there we go. There I go. Alright. It was me, apparently.
Nope, it was also me as well.
Here, bro. Is that enough? Nope. Give me planks.
I ended up dying somehow.
That's not good. That is not the correct drawer, but it is. There we go. Oh. I'm slowly making it down the list. I'm halfway down the first column.
Yeah, that's how I felt once I had both all the slabs and all the scaffolding for the farm. I was like, yay, those were the two big ones out of the way. I already had most of the materials for it, but it was just
Annoying to collect.
Like, the two, yeah. It definitely apparently needed the bone meal farm. Or not bone meal, bamboo farm.
How does one... Okay, that's fine, that's fine.
Forget how small a stack is relative to, like, building.
Yeah, it's... great. Oh, perfect.
Because that's, like, 2 rows. Plus, like, I think 3 stacks.
Yeah.
Worth of both, and that.
Yeah, 24.
And once I get the farms going, I can actually, I found a good spot to find horses. There's like 20
found another
horses
one?
all just sitting next to... Yeah, 20 horses just sitting next to a lava pit.
Let's see. Oh, you're all the way out there, okay. I know one
Yeah.
over west of Josh's base.
Yeah, I don't think the server likes me loading chunks, like, at all.
That check out.
Where...
Both.
Oh. Where is my death waypoint? Oh, fuck.
Heh. Need me to sleep real
I
quick?
didn't open my inventory. Okay, he won't move us if I have my inventory reopened.
I should. I don't see why I wouldn't. Where is the leaf?
Help. Help. Okay. So... I need to probably just land on my best spot. But yeah, this is a massive pill garden, and there's a bunch of
We might
flowers
as well make a
already.
portal for that.
It's so
I don't know if
far
I'd fully
away.
connect it up, but I'd at least build a, or like dig a tunnel for it.
Where is my...
Yeah.
My gravestone's not there.
Hmm.
Okay, well, it's not at the bottom of the world, and I doubt it's at the top. So where the fuck is my shit?
Oh, that's how. Okay.
Hello? Items that are very much mine. Where are you? Kinda need you. Really don't want to go have to make an entirely new set of armor.
Yeah,
And
because that
literally
sucks to
everything
do.
else. Because
I
I
don't need
literally
that.
had everything on me. Hello? Is there a way to, like,
Do you have
just
your
find
waypoints
the
on?
thingies? Yeah, directly on the waypoint. It's just not there.
No. Because you haven't died since. You free camming checking around, or?
Yeah, that's fully what I'm doing.
I have no clue.
I checked pie chart if I could open it, but I don't know, like, how to open it.
I usually do F3-1.
I can't do F3-1.
Does it open something else, or?
My keyboard physically can't do F3-1. I can do F3 and F1, but or 3 and 1. There's no F3-1. I think it's Shift F3
F3
for me.
shift is the common way to do it, I think. I've just always struggled with it. Iron bars. Ebook window.
I want to say, give me a...
Oh, there she goes. Oh, I have pink. Who's causing the pink diamonds? Who's causing the pink diamonds? Let me. I can't move this one around, apparently. Okay, is it you? Who was causing the pink diamonds last time? I forgot about this. It's attached to one of them. I don't remember who. Which one is it attached to? Was it the music disc retexture for some reason? Let me try plates. I didn't have plates before, so it could be that. Plates. For some reason, no, not plates. You know, I'm just gonna stick a couple diamonds down here. Just because. Wait, if it's a singular. Singular is fine, so it has to be the stacking. Got it. But give me my plates back, wherever they may be. It's the stackables. Yep, there you go. Stackables is beautiful. I don't want pink diamonds though. 7. We just need a couple iron bars. Up. Nope. Beautiful. A 19 bar. Up. And slowly continue collecting everything. We're only 2/3 of the way down the first column. Because I made so many items for this. It's not even a huge build either. It's just furnished. Which makes this all the more fun. Pretty. I have 1 barrel. So I'm pretty sure that's how I need to make this. Barrel trapdoor. Yeah. Yeah. At least it makes multiple though. So I should only need 4 more barrels. Barrel. Do this. Should make us plenty of barrels. Yep. And then grab some of this so we can make barrel trapdoor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because I need like 18 or something. 18. So the rest of that can go in there. Boop. And boop. And the easiest thing possible. Just simple trapdoors. Simple trapdoors. 18 trapdoors. Just normal spruce. There you go. Beautiful. And bop. Oh, I do also need spruce stairs. I need so many things. There's a reason I do it off camera, but I've already said that. I just need to get it done. So we can actually go build. I don't know if we're gonna build today. I'm hoping so, because we're only... Oh, we are already an hour in. It depends on what it takes to get the rest of this list. Because a lot of these things are just singulars. Once we hit the end of the first column, it's less than 10 items for all of this. And I should have most of it. Dark tough countertops. So we need some polished tough. I think it's actually slabs. And we need some amount of this. How does one make... That is how one make. I don't need that. I need you guys. How many do... I can only make 5. I need 16. Why can't I only make 5? Oh, I need more slabs. There we go. That's 14. I need more. Please. 1, 2. Thank you. I'll slowly get through it. Slowly. Well, a lot of shenanigans have happened this week. So it's gonna hopefully be a fun episode. I have majority of it already cut, so I imagine I will just be adding this in to the video, and it should be about ready after that. Do I have any smooth stone? I have a singular piece of smooth stone. I need more than that. Can I cut it? Nope. Of course Stoneworks wouldn't let me. There's so many things that need to get done, and I don't know what we're gonna do next week. And I still have another thing I need to do today after editing. And thanks stars, I ended up changing what I was doing for that project. It's gonna be posted tomorrow. I changed what I was doing for that project. You know, we're just gonna, I'm gonna waste the buckets. We'll waste the buckets. Because if I had tried to do that, I would not have made it on time and we would not be streaming this or get a video out at all. I changed it to something, one, I actually liked, and two, far easier last minute. So all I have to do is go in and build. And might record it, I don't know. I wanted to record it, so that may happen. But it depends on the energy I have after this. So today is this stream, edit, get frickin' build done, wrap up video, work on other projects so it can be done and ready for tomorrow. So I can post the video tomorrow. If I do a video for the project, post that, or post something about said project. It's gonna be a whole bunch of fun. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I need to go through and get more, or refill my lava buckets at some point, apparently. And for some reason, I have copper ingots down here. Okay. Last one. Thank you. Fuck. I don't remember why I have copper ingots down there. They're just there. Yep. So many things to get done. So many technical difficulties that have made this rather annoying, to put it lightly. And we gotta get it done, and then I'm just gonna vibe out and chill. Probably, there are two things I'm working on right now that are just like completely personal, random items. I really want Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare. We did a small stream of it somewhat recently. I don't save variety streams, so it is what it is.
I'm back. I ended up
Welcome back.
setting up a macro.
Upgraded torch. I still want to get the toxic pea.
Okay, so it is here.
Is it just... So it is there, but it isn't, or...
It is, like, within the area.
Okay.
Let me actually lower my render. I'm gonna just do some speedrunning tech to try and see where it's at exactly.
That's fair.
Oh.
Dark railing. Made out of that, which is made out of that. Okay.
Okay, so it is within these two chunks.
Enough. That is
Here's
enough.
my render. We're looking for like a spike. Is it
14?
Because I was trying to see if it was an entity, if you could just teleport it to me, but it's technically a block and not an entity.
Yeah, because you can even craft them and use them as blocks.
Well, I wasn't sure if the player ones were.
Oh, that's fair. Balcony. Oh, that's railing, not balcony. Balcony's later. Mangrove Whispering Trapdoor. How many? 13.
Okay, so it's out of my... It's somewhere...
Yeah.
Okay, so it's around here.
12. I don't want 8, I want 12. 12. Yeah, those would be back here, wouldn't they? I'm tempted one of these times just to make a giant town for my base and just completely spread out all of my stuff nonsensically across everything. Oh, bricks would be in the other room.
So it is within this area. I didn't think to bring food. So
That's a
I'm
problem.
just kind of like at 2 hearts running around. Well, I didn't think it'd be a problem of trying to find my stuff.
Let me sleep for you just in case.
Thank you. So it's somewhere this way because I've unloaded. No, I haven't. But I'm thinking it's somewhere this way.
Something something momentum, your body went flying.
No, because that wouldn't. It would. That doesn't make sense. That's the thing.
Fair enough. Andesite pillar wall.
Yeah, because that's.
Andesite.
I'm trying to wait till I unload the death marker. Because once I unload the death marker, and if like it disappears off pie chart after I've unloaded the death marker, then that means it's somewhere within range of the death marker.
Oh yeah, let's talk about Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare. I really want to get the Toxic Bee. I'm honestly just gonna chill out tomorrow and try and get it. Or continue Skyrim Survival Legendary A through Z. So I'm
That's
stuck in the middle of a companion's quest
okay. So
line.
it is at the death marker or near it, which is even more weird because it's now.
It's a ghost.
Because I've re-rendered that area and now it's back.
Is it just one of the... It's a block, not a block entity. Or is it a block entity?
No, it's a block. It's not a block entity, because if it was a block entity,
sometimes I have trouble rendering like chests or beds, and I have to reload chunks in order to see it.
No, it's a block. It's not a block entity, because if it was a block entity, it might be a block. Or I don't think it is, because it's showing up on pie chart, but that's... Might be. Yeah, because mob spawners are also block entities, are they not?
Yeah.
So I guess it is, but then what the fuck would it be? Where the fuck would it be?
Reload chunks a couple times?
That's what I've done. So I don't know.
Slabs. Give me all those. Give, think.
Let me go look at the mod page, see if there's a way I could possibly like teleport it to me.
Yeah, because it's definitely broken. That alone we can see. Or tell. Just, yep. Not a 1x1, 2x2. Probably keep that close by for... in a minute. Oh, I should have kept the slabs on me.
Oh, so you can configure it to, if you have subsequent deaths, you can shut off the gravestone decay. But they do decay over time.
It just changes the state of it. So it'll change from like cracked to mossy.
Yeah, but after a bit it will just pop.
It shouldn't have been that long for it to pop though.
No.
Takes a minute.
No, and it's showing up still on thing.
Small dark drawer? Drawer? Small dark drawers. Okay.
You know what would be really funny is if I get the recovery, go grab it, like craft a recovery compass, and it just points completely away from where it is. Problem is I'm so far away from my base, I don't really want to fly all the way back and then do all that, and I don't have, only have one spare elytra, and it's not enchanted, so.
Glass. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Where that? Oh, that's, yeah, right. Glass is in the fight pit. And then a couple of those how does one make those windows? Okay.
Okay, so do you mind giving me op real quick?
Yeah. Well, lucky I can still do that without having to access the console.
Yeah.
Yeah, resizable, there we go. And I need 8. Perfect. Bloody mangrove, do I? Probably not. I'd be surprised if I did. I would have kept... No, I don't. Time for a trip in our favorite rocket ship. I would assume that's an axe drop. And...
X11.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna use all 3 of these backpacks. Yeah, I should. Probably. Yeah. I can boat! I forget every time the hub's done.
Dash 5.
There's a bunny in the hub.
2 0 80.
Yeah, no, next one's mangrove. And this is why the frog lights are important. There we go. Lovely. Oh my god. Oh. How many of you are here? Oh jeez, what is causing?
That wasn't my death. Oops.
What?
I accidentally recovered the wrong player's death. Who had netherite emerald armor?
I have no clue.
Okay, so...
I'm trying to figure out why I'm lagging. I'm assuming it's just these guys, but... jeez.
It's because of your texture pack and all the leaves.
Yeah, you right. Hold on, where's...
What is today,
where's
the
that
31st?
one? Huh?
What is today, the 31st?
Yeah. I don't have a leaves texture pack.
What's the one
Maybe
doing
it's
the fluffy
enhanced
leaves?
plants. Let's try that one. Probably that then. Because there is a bushy leaf one we do have. I don't have that one on, so I'm assuming it's this.
Holy crap.
Yeah, okay, that's better.
11, 13.
Let's get rid of connected textures. That could probably be a reason.
26, 29,
Very.
11,
I'm keeping stone petals.
12, 25.
Okay.
And that's 12, 20.
Okay, that's tolerable. I just want several muddy mangrove. That's it. I require you. Oh, you're a shovel one. Okay.
It's not even showing up.
That's a problem. And glitch?
Oh, because it's not showing my UID. That's why. It's only showing someone else's UID. Yeah, it was just on the wrong UID.
Ooh. Okay, that's enough. And to get out of this lagscape.
There we go. You can de-out me now.
Okay, hold on, let me get out. Oh, jeez. Not myself, then we can't do anything. Okay. You know what? You know what would be a thing that would help?
What?
Turning off distant horizons. That
Yeah,
would
that's
be a
fair.
thing. Hey, race goes back. And the stupid bunny.
I think I'll have to ask Race Car, because it might be his UID. If
Hmm.
he ever had emerald armor and died with it.
Yeah. That sounds like something he'd do.
Sounds like armor he would have, too.
Yeah.
I'll probably just ask Race Car if he had ever had emerald netherite armor.
Because he'd be one of the few people that actually go that far out. If not, you could just check in the server.
So all it does is it just keeps a log of your deaths, and then no matter the. Okay, so do you know either if you had netherite emerald armor, or know of someone who had netherite emerald armor
And died with it?
Not died with it, just died when wearing it. I don't know.
Maybe it
the
was
thing,
me at
it
some
just keeps
point,
a log of your inventory,
but I
and
doubt it.
so the mod keeps a log of your inventory and when you died. So it doesn't actually void the like the gravestone. It gives you the stuff when you command recover.
Oh, that's why I need to craft it. Okay.
That's why there's decay for it. So it might have been like MRACI or the one of the other two. But I don't remember either of them ever having emerald netherite armor.
I have doubts that it was me, because I immediately, like, went up. And...
Yeah, you went to...
Yeah, I went
instantly
straight...
went to diamond.
I didn't need to do that.
And I haven't crafted any of mine into emerald nether.
Wait, am I being... Am I being a... No.
Gold, and the only thing that I had past gold was my, what is it? Or the only thing that I've had gold was my boots. So, it obviously wasn't me. And, no, because Lilac was still on diamond, wasn't she?
I don't remember what she was at.
I believe she was still just on diamond. I don't think she ever did go up to netherite. I mean, who has enough resources to feasibly, reasonably go up to advanced netherite emerald? I think the only 3 people who feasibly had enough resources for that would be us. Am I wrong?
I'm checking something, because I still have, like, my old footage stuff. Oh no, it was this week. Okay, hold on, wait. Recordings, not finished cut videos. So I could go into recording and see what Lilac had.
Like you had like emerald, or not emerald, but bamboo, or like some like paler.
Lilac had iron, netherite.
Last time you checked, or last time?
No, from Sunday's recording. She's wearing iron netherite. I still have the footage.
I could have sworn she
did go netherite mining with us during that whole debacle.
I didn't think she ever did go up to netherite.
Yeah.
I know we gave her the stuff for it, but
I
I know
couldn't
she
tell
went
you
up
what
into
Misty had,
advanced.
but I'm pretty
Misty
sure
had
most of the
diamond.
people on the server have some sort of netherite.
I'm positive Misty has diamond.
Yeah. Alright.
Yeah.
I know we got Axe up to at least nether. I can't remember if she got up to something
Not high enough
higher.
to emerald. She for sure is only another right.
Alright.
Because I don't believe she went all the way up to emerald. Can you make it, Rand?
Got you.
Thank you. But yeah, it was
Okay.
fully just I grabbed the wrong UID because I'm looking at
Oh,
this and I'm like, none of
hello?
these dates are saying the 31st. Their most recent death was like the 26th. And that's when they had the stuff.
That
So if
could
it
have
was,
absolutely been from the two of them fighting.
yeah, that's exactly why I was thinking it was one of the two. Because
Yeah.
they had diamond tools, emerald. Yeah, because he refused to upgrade the diamond armor. Or upgrade the netherite armor. Because he's like, netherites are quick drops or whatever. So I'm thinking it might have been Coconut who had the emerald advanced.
Yeah.
Because
Wait,
they
why
had
did he
planks on
refuse
them and I'm like,
to? Is it because, like, oh, netherite cancels knockback or whatever that he refused to?
I think he just refused to be egotistical and was like, I'm beating you in diamond when you have the best armor in the game.
Hmm.
No offense. I mean it like, oh.
Nah, I think offense is meant.
No, I didn't mean it like he's
No,
just
no, I'm saying
no brat.
I don't care if offense is meant.
Okay, but all I
I
was
haven't blocked at
getting
this
at is
point for a reason.
but yeah, I'm almost positive it was fully just an egotistical. I'm better than you because I'm using
I
diamond.
never put you
I
go
didn't grab
here.
enough. It would help if I actually grabbed these right amount for what I was doing. I fully like started leaving the second I got like 3 freaking hearts.
Oh yeah, the whole reason. The flowers.
Yeah.
Cobble deep slate rail. Cobble deep slate rail.
Is there any good enchants on it?
Okay, I could just do that. Wonderful.
But yeah,
1,
I'm
2,
thinking it's coconut. I mean, once you do NBC, you could see what coconut had.
1, 2. Did it give yes?
Oh wait, there was how many people were actually like? Because there was Newfley. I don't know. I don't remember what Newfley had.
Newfley was just a Thernia's other account.
Right, but I don't know what armor Newfley had. We forget there was
But it
like
wouldn't have been
they have
logged
like
on the
3 extra
26th.
accounts. Do you think Love logged on at on the 26th?
Is there a timestamp on it? Or same account? It's listed as 2 different players. Okay.
Would that change? Yeah. So if it's same account, then
Because when I look at player
because your
lists for the
UID
server,
doesn't
I see
change.
both usernames. Dark cabinets.
That explains why Newfly and him had such a similar fighting style. Yeah, because last time I saw Newfly only had, what is it? Diamond.
How many? 6.
How many flowers do you need?
I just need one of each. One open, one closed.
Why do you need one of each?
Because I'm gonna put them in flower pots in your potion shop.
Oh, is there physically only one?
Yeah, they're
each?
decor.
Oh.
Yeah.
I've been out here like scrounging this thing for every one of its flowers. I have like almost a stack of both.
Yeah, I just needed one.
Okay, well, 3 flowers for me then.
You'll never have to make another trip.
I probably will just grab more moss. Probably not, because I think I have enough to make the farm.
Yes. And then... one by one. Not that many.
But yeah, I'm glad I decided to go look at the mod page, because that's the only way I figured out how to do the thing. Because it's, if you look at the mod page, there's a command to do it, in order to have it teleport to you.
I'm like halfway done with this frickin' list.
Goods. That's goods. I have 3 creaking heads if anybody wants them.
52 levels because game froze. Ooh.
I hate it whenever I died of lag. It sucks. Is this the whole reason I died then? Because it lagged and then said, experience too much kinetic energy. When, Amarethii killed me, I had like 300 levels.
Amarethii?
Grab it, bring it in. Whatever his name
Athernia?
is. Keep pronouncing. Yeah, Athernia.
Or whatever it was.
Yeah, whenever he maced me over by my base, I had like 300 levels because I was lagging, and I'm like, can you just not be over here?
Yeah. I should have added that to his ban list reasons. Because that's PvP without asking.
Well, I started it. I initiated it. I started attacking him. And then he just maced and killed me. Because I was lagging. I was just punching him out with my sword. Whose name was on the pat? Oh, well, Mom ordered it under both of our names, didn't she? Bring it here. How big is it? Actually, why don't I just...
Ow! There we go. Every time I hear chirp, my mind goes to Little Big Planet. I don't know why.
Yeah, go set it on
just hear Little Big Planet. How does one make...
Yeah, because that's her shoes.
Purple. Ah, okay, that's really easy, great.
And then Monday, I get my new desk.
Hell yeah. Where? Here.
If you want, you can have it. I completely forgot you were gonna probably take it. Go clear out a spot then, because Monday I'm putting it in there. You're gonna help me with that. You need to do it this weekend because the desk is showing up Monday. I'm putting it together Monday, and I'm moving this desk out of my room Monday.
Oh, yeah, there is another set of doors, aren't there?
Okay, are you gonna put up the dishes within a reasonable hour? You kinda need to, it's your chore. I don't even know where I'm at. Oh, I flew completely past spawn.
Uh-oh.
Like 15k. I've been gliding this whole time. Cause I'm like 500 blocks up.
May or may not have. I'm
Why'd
curious for what
you
purpose,
dig up
but I
a
don't
bunch
think
of
I'm gonna get an
sand?
answer.
Why'd you dig up a bunch of
Oh, how long
sand?
has my VTuber been lagging?
We have the
Okay, he's
sand
running over.
deeper.
Sometimes you just want to dig.
Okay, I'll be
I
back.
don't want
But I
stupid
am sitting here
inventory
now, so-
highlight. You. Drawer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, 5. 5. Unbuild. I have like I have so many green highlighter like marks on my hand from struggling to close the frickin' marker. Shouldn't need any more of that. Probably. Yeah. How does one? Just need 5. Yes. 5 of those. Other. Low candle. Triple candle. Small candle. Lovely. A bop. And then those go later. And that's that one full. Yes. Yes. Yeah, I definitely have that. Yes. Worked. Copper trapdoors and sand. Trapdoor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And my full sand. 4 crimson root. 4 dark 2x2s. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 soul sand. Yeah, honestly, I think after I collect all this, I'm gonna log. I'm gonna end stream there, and then just get this done. Dark 2x2, so I do need it. One. Oh, that's all I need. Perfect. Boop, boop. And then finally the balcony. That's not right. Balcony. Fungus. The mushrooms. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Misty might be live by the time you can stream. And Bashu was already live. Because I saw her, she went live this morning. Yeah, she's live right now. Oh, still. Okay. I'll miss that. Oh, purple candle. Yeah, that's a slight problem.
Schizophrenic race car look. looks if you look in chat.
Apple.
Oh, I have my headphones on now. Just know if we
Bees.
do get different shelf mod, you have to replace all the shelves in your house.
I will happily do so, if it means I don't have to deal with the problems anymore.
Okay.
I don't even care if I lose out on all the ones I have crafted. I do not care.
I'm removing the cherry well that's been here since day one.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
The poor well. Thought it was gonna survive. Who
No,
made
no, I
this,
have it. I got rid of it
stone?
on the schematic, too.
Yeah, I got rid of it when we were building. I was like,
Yeah.
are we removing this? So yeah, now it's gone. You want 11 resin clumps?
I have no use for it.
Oh, here you go. First off, I plan on making a resin farm anyways. Because they're cheap and easy to make.
It's only a building block, isn't it? Not
It's
too
really good for
useful.
scaffolding.
How can you use
But
it
you
for
can insta-break
scaffolding?
it. But you can
Wait, what?
insta-break it. You can
How-
insta-break it with your fist.
Resin Instabreak scaffold. What?
No. Resin is a insta-break. It's good for using as a scaffolding block. I'll show
And
you.
just use like dirt or stone.
Yeah, but you insta-break this. You insta-break this with your fist.
And you should probably have tools on you anyway. Dirt does the same job.
Not with your fist.
I'm not gonna break it with my fist then. I'm not making an entire farm for a block to break with my fist.
I also use it for like lava accent instead of actually having running lava. That's what I used for my
That's fair. I don't have any use for it.
That's fair.
What is that? What did I write?
I look like a really weird parrot.
Up. Cherluck, load. Not load, not load. Unload. I want a material list. What did I write there? Yeah. It's button. I wrote button. It looks like
Why do you have a brown sheep?
Huh? Oh, he probably stole it from, my farm. Or my barn. Craft? Craft. Thank you. On the site. I think I'm at the perfect point of acceptance, where I no longer bat an eye at the shenanigans nor question.
Oh,
It's
bad
better
enough.
than other things happening.
It's fair. You're better than your brother.
Beautiful. And I just need literally 2 of those. Oh, nope, wrong way. 2 in there, the rest in there. Through. Okay.
It's not even really that good.
I'm curious, what?
His mace is
I'd
fully
even
enchanted.
bother.
I heard. Why does he have 2 charged creeper heads?
Collections.
I'm taking his golden apples. This sword.
That's what I was doing, right. Right.
I'm taking those. Those are all mine. He's killed me enough. I get to take his sword. Oh. I didn't take the mace, I promise. I already have
Great
one and I can craft another one. I just took his golden apples and bad omen and I get a new sword because I lost mine. So hey, I got a free sword upgrade.
Nice. Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to dye the other one. Thank you. Because it can't. Right.
It would really suck if he hasn't. Nope, he doesn't. I was about to say, it would really suck if he has not back on this, because then I can't use it. Or, I can use it, I just don't want to use it.
Hmm.
I mean, I could fully just disenchant it.
Yeah. You're just shadowing me.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I have nothing better to do. I'm gonna be so for real, you're the only reason I got on.
That's fair. That seems to be what happens a lot. So I'm just logging on doing my stuff and people are like, hey, hi.
I saw you were streaming and then I was like, yeah, I guess I'll
Why not?
on.
Yeah. Yes, I do. I knew I did. Hanging sign. Oh, right. It makes 6. Well. I only needed 2. That's not how I wanted to organize that.
I'm gonna go
and I don't have
drawers
2.
if you haven't already quantified them.
I'm pretty sure all of them are.
You missed one of them that I've seen.
Oh, right, Wax.
I also might make a honey farm.
We have a honey farm. I just need to also add in some more it's completely full right now of honey bottles. I need to add some shears into it.
Oh, you mean
on the nether roof.
Nether. Yeah.
Need a whopping 2. What did I even use 2 spruce slabs for? I don't remember. We'll find out, I guess. I don't remember why you were in my material list.
Outside. You use 2 spruce signs outside.
Slabs.
Signs. Oh, slabs? I don't know.
I do not remember. We're gonna find out.
What, are you gonna build it today too?
Yeah, after stream, because I'm just planning on zoning out and letting some Let's Plays play in the background while I do that.
That's fair.
Oh. Wait, doesn't it? I think it does. I would assume it does. Yes. I was gonna say, ow. I don't know why I always think tripwire hooks need string to craft it, not to use it.
Hmm.
Oop.
I don't know. It is just the hook.
Yeah. Oh, not that. Not that. I need...
You have a skeleton outside.
Tell Sans to fuck off?
No, if you look at me, I have an arrow in my shoulder.
For me, it's in your left calf.
I don't know
or your right calf.
That's, like, not a consistent thing, but yeah, I just have an arrow in me. I stepped outside, looked out the window, got shot by the skeleton, and then came back in and was like, you have a skeleton outside.
Oh, do you have the closed eye and open eye?
Hmm?
Did you bring the flowers?
Did I bring the flowers?
Did you?
No, I think I left them at my base. I think I went back to... No, because I flew directly here. Where did I put the flowers?
That's a good question.
Maybe I did flash on my base.
I don't know.
I'll go find out, because I don't know what happened to them.
That. Oop. Nope, there. And I should have the materials. I would doubt if I didn't. There we go. Okay, hold on. I'm just stealing that. There you go. I'm on the last, like, 6 or 8 of them. 8 materials. And I've already crafted most of them.
I for sure
Candle.
know, I for sure know I had them. I just don't know where I put them.
I already crafted those. Then we just need the flowers.
You know what would really suck is if
Oh,
I
pale glass
accidentally
trapdoor.
crafted them into,
Oh, Billy Bob's Wi-Fi went out. Our race car's Wi-Fi went out.
Who the fuck is Billy Bob?
Billy Bob is the username he has in my chat. Is the username he has on Twitch. I have a singular pale oak glass door, whatever. Hell yeah. 3 more items and then the flowers and we're done. I have a singular spruce barn trapdoor. No, of course I don't. I always go for the barn trapdoors because they're beautiful, but also the most annoying one possible to craft.
Where the hell did I put the flowers? Bro, where did the flowers go? How much you want to bet I put them in race car shulker box?
That would be really funny. And then I know for a fact I have those. One.
Race car
I do
is
not.
now on hotspot. I don't know how well that's gonna work out for him, but yeah, I think I fully put it in the shulker box.
Where did I leave an open spot? Yes, I did.
Which is funny, but like at the same time, it's kind of like
I kind of need that.
Yeah, because I don't know where the I put it.
Wi-Fi backup. Okay. Those are literally the last things I need.
Well, yeah, I have absolutely no idea where I put them.
The open and closed flowers from the Pale Garden.
They would be in your.
They are not in the shulker box.
You have amaranthite stuff. Oh.
Amaranthite.
I don't know why I keep calling him that.
A 30th.
Yeah, which I need to change his sword name.
You should name the sword Amaranthite.
Bro. Bro, where did I put it?
That's a really good question.
I have no idea. Where did I put them? I'm gonna name the sword Amethyst Shard, but where did I put the fucking... Check your chests. I think I might have just set them in one of your chests.
The question is, okay, I'm gonna check the pale one first, because that'd be one.
How much you want to bet I threw them on the ground whenever I was fixing the fucking, what is it,
They're not in the correct spots, I could tell you that.
Probably not.
I am checking...
I might just fly back just to go grab more, because I think I might have thrown them down when they were in my inventory and I was fixing up the spot where the,
It seems to be so, because I'm not seeing them.
Wars. Why do I always have to put stuff where they're not supposed to go? How do
Hmm.
Oh, I think
This
I
is the
think our
last
wing
room I
chest will
have to
work.
check.
We'll just use a lilac head.
Nope. I put planks in a pot that's not supposed to have planks. No, you did not put them in my house. Unless for some reason you went in my kitchen, but...
I don't know why I would just put them in a
Nope.
chest though, so I think I might have just thrown them at you, at some out. Because I was like, oh, these aren't supposed to be in my inventory. This is like taking up space in my inventory. I don't want this in my inventory.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. 'Cause, yeah.
Has it been 5 minutes?
Probably.
Imagine it's just barely hasn't, and as I get there, they despawn.
Well, you've unloaded the chunk, haven't you?
You kept them loaded.
Oh, if you throw them, threw them out of my base. I would have seen them by now, wouldn't I have?
No, if I threw them out while I was fixing the
Oh, well, you're fixing the well. Okay, let me go check the well then.
I'm already there. They're not here. Oh, oh! I think I know where I put them.
Hmm?
I think I know where. But yeah, I found them.
Yay!
I
Just
told you I
thank
just
you.
put them in a chest somewhere.
Thank you.
I told you I just probably
Probies
put
were
them in a chest
appropriate.
somewhere because this is also holding 4 creaking hearts, which I kind of need. What are you doing? Oh, I didn't fill that in. That was on the.
He's being a race car. That's what he is. Closed open. There we go. All the materials have been collected. Lovely.
It's fully just a matter of I had put them. I knew I put them somewhere. Just couldn't remember where.
I'll let stream see it before I close it off. Let me stand in the correct spot I need. Load.
Okay, well, it's now off. Right now it's ooh.
Alright, because we're all the way up at 124, because mountains. There we go.
Big whole backpack.
Let me,
Why do you
can I
have
turn
so
on
many spider eyes in here?
config, hotkey,
What have you been up to?
ghost block?
I'm gonna give it back, but what have you been up to with?
Do I have anything on that? Nope. Cool.
Please tell me you didn't
Oop.
mine this 7K sand. Okay.
What? That's supposed to be the... I just want to change the render state.
Well, that how
Would it
much
be
you
under
want to bet that's why
toggle?
the sand duper's empty?
For
Because I went and
TNT?
checked it the other day. Gordon Race Car, he's not the one who might have got the gathered the 7K sand. What are you trying to do?
There's, they're ghost blocks right now. I want them to be opaque. Because I know that's a button, but I can't find... Translucent rendering! Thank you! There we go. So you can actually see how it's supposed to look in the end. Ta-da! It's gonna look pretty. I slightly changed the windows, but they look pretty. Yes, yes, yes. Because I wanted to at least show stream what's going on with it. It's pretty.
Bro,
Simple
it
but
looks
good.
the same to me.
I slightly changed the window parapets. This is like the only visible change from the outside. The inside has been basically completely changed to dark oak, and there's some little bit more texturing downstairs, and that's about it.
No, I meant the see-throughness of it. It looks the same to me.
That is very much so different. One,
I
you can
know.
actually see the blocks. The other one, you can see all of them.
What did I set it to?
Oh, we'll end the stream there. I'm gonna mute for a sec. I'll still be in game, and then I'll be back. That'll be it. We can actually go raid
No.
Misty.
What
But I
did
think we
put
can
the
do that if
app
she's
at
still
to?
live. She should be. I don't see why she wouldn't.
Oh, I just made it easier so I don't have to reach across my keyboard.
Yes, she is! So we're gonna go raid Misty. Let's go raid Misty.
Do you by chance have mods I can possibly borrow? Well, borrow
Video will be tomorrow. There's also gonna be post tomorrow
re-enchant my
promos.
tools.
And I think that's it. So we go on a raid. That's caps lock.
Because I think I used all my emeralds.
Mysterio,
artifacts.
the good friend. Yes,
Thank
there you go. We're gonna go raid out. Y'all have a good night. Y'all have a good day.